Welcome to River Tales. River Tales is a 30-minute program that will introduce you to fascinating people, take you to interesting places, and enlighten you on important events that happen in our region. River Tales is sponsored by Southeast Health.
I'm a father of 3. 2 boys, 1 little girl. Taking care of them is my top priority. I'm a father, and cancer doesn't change that.
At the Southeast Cancer Center, we know that your life doesn't stop because of cancer. You are a person with a life to live. Ask your doctor about the difference at the Southeast Cancer Center.
On this edition of River Tales, we celebrate the 5th anniversary of the SEMO River Campus. We take a ride at the Electronic Vehicle Conversion Convention, we'll meet a young explorer, and we travel north to St. Genevieve for the Christmas Festival at the Felix Valley State Historical Site. Stay tuned to River Tales.
This season marks the 5th anniversary for the River Campus at Southeast Missouri State University. Since the grand opening of the campus in 2007, faculty and students have been dedicated to making this establishment where the arts and entertainment meet. Rhonda Weller-Stilson, the director of the Holland School of Visual and Performing Arts and Associate Dean of the College of Liberal Arts, discusses the school and its transition to the River Campus.
The Holland School of Visual and Performing Arts is made up of the departments of art, music, theater, and dance. We were all in different buildings on the main campus. And then in 2007, when we started the move over, it was bringing everyone together. And it truly was a collaboration because we were all trying to just figure it out and how we were going to use these spaces. Because we had the touring shows, we had our academic programs, and I have to say it was just difficult just figuring out where everything was, but after that everybody worked really well together, and it worked so much better than we ever thought it could as far as that great collaboration of everyone.
The school as a whole was not the only thing to undergo changes. Each department within the Holland School of Visual and Performing Arts endured its own. Christopher Gurka, the chair of the Department of Music, explained his department's struggles before the opening of the River Campus and how the transition has helped his department.
We lived, if you want to say it that way, in Brant, what used to be Brant Music Hall. And in addition to Brant Music Hall, where we had most of our classes and offices, we also performed in Academic Hall, in Academic Auditorium, and also various churches around town, because we didn't have any sort of concert hall or recital hall. So when we moved to the River Campus, this was a significant improvement for us, because all of our performing venues were now in one location, and they were much more suited to live music performances than the venues that we had been using.
The Theater and Dance Department went through many transitions even before the River Campus was resurrected. Ken Stilson, the Theater and Dance Department chair, discusses this more in detail.
Well, the theater department has been around for many, many years, since the 1960s. But before, the program vacillated between probably between 20 and 35 majors. So it was a very, very small program, and it was part of the speech department, and it was even the smaller of the 2 programs for most of its existence. In 2003, the Department of Speech and Theater split into the Department of Theater and Dance. In that period of time between 2001, when we got here and started developing the idea of the River Campus and the School of Visual and Performing Arts, we have gone from around 20 majors all the way up to 168 majors, where we are today.
Caroline Kaler began her job as chair of the Department of Art on August 1st of 2011. She came from Bethany College in Kansas, where she had been the chair for 23 years. Kaler spoke about why she decided to apply for the position at the River campus.
Even though I looked at a lot of positions, this was the only position that I really pursued, because when I went to the website, I was very impressed with how organized the art department was. I just thought it looked really, really positive. And then, of course, looking online and seeing what the campus looked like, I thought, wow, that's very intriguing. But I'd never been here before, so when I made my visit to the campus, I was, everything pretty much was true as what I had seen, and I was very impressed.
Even though Kaler has not been at the university for long, she still understands the impact building the River campus has had on the art department.
The transition here has really allowed the art department to blossom. We've more than doubled our student enrollment. In fact, we have 210 majors in all of our areas. So that makes us, the largest group on the River campus. And so, that's been a real advantage moving into this space and having more space in which to teach. I would say that the greatest thing that the anniversary allowed us to do was to look inside of ourselves and to see how much the group has grown, the department has grown since it's moved here.
The past 5 seasons at the River campus have brought together the 3 departments into one location while creating a whole new relationship between them. The faculty has seen the impact the campus has had, realizes they are privileged to have such a wonderful facility, and can't wait to see what the future brings.
When we were on the main campus, we were all separate and we didn't see each other very much. And so now we're all together, and it's really fostered some wonderful collaborations. And it's just great to walk down the hall and to look in the dance studio and you see the dancers having classes. And then in the instrument room, you hear the students in music warming up and practicing. And then you walk into the costume shop and you see them all busy making costumes and working on scenery, and there's just a buzz everywhere you go. And it's just wonderful to see all of them together creating. This is a very busy place. It just goes non-stop, and it's just wonderful to see everyone. And I just love the collaboration that it has brought.
The whole focus, the mission of our program has changed, and it's not just about the facility. It's about the whole. We developed the idea of the school. Okay, the building is a wonderful, an inspiring place to be, but it's really about developing the philosophy of the department and of the school, which has happened at the same time that we were developing the building.
The 5th anniversary for the Department of Music and for the River campus as a whole, I think it's a great time to stop just for a moment and think about where we were before we came here, and also to think about how far we've come in the short time we've been here. And when you do that, you realize there's a lot going on here, and which is great, and we add a lot to the university community and to the whole Southeast Missouri area. So it's been helpful for us to stop for a moment and think about it and realize that it's a good thing. What we're doing has a significant impact, and we need to continue doing it.
We all love this facility. We love to show it off. We're very proud of the River campus.
I love the look of it and the lines. I love seeing the bridge.
Because I think we have a great atmosphere for learning and creating art.
We've built a home here, a professional home, and I can't imagine working anywhere else now. This is where I live, and this is where I work, and this is where I create.
I am a sister. Actually, I'm the oldest of 5. And my house is where everyone gathers. Taking care of things, well, that's just what I do. I'm a sister, and cancer doesn't change that. At the Southeast Cancer Center, we know that your life doesn't stop because of cancer. You are a person who touches other lives every day. Ask your doctor about the difference at the Southeast Cancer Center.
If you're tired of spending all your money filling up your gas tank, then you'll want to see our story on local entrepreneur Jack Rickard. Recently, about 200 people arrived in Cape Girardeau to learn more about converting cars to run on electricity at the Electric Vehicle Conversion Convention.
They were science projects, typically 1,200 pounds batteries, 25-mile range. You had to change the batteries every 2 years. Hello, I'm Jack Rickard. I'm with Electric Vehicle Television, EVTV. We show people how to convert a car to make their own electric vehicle. Electric vehicle does not have any gasoline engine in it, for one thing. It runs on battery power. You recharge it at home from the electric grid. It runs entirely on battery power. We had our first electric vehicle conversion convention 21st to 25th of September. We had about 140 people that are involved in, a lot of them run little conversion shops where they convert cars for other people. A lot of hobbyists that are doing their own cars, some university build teams, and some of the people selling products into that space here in Cape Girardeau for a first meeting.
So my name is Tim Cavalier, and I'm from Phoenix, Arizona, and this is the car that I converted. It's a 2000 BMW Z3, and I converted it to electric drive because I was tired of waiting for the industry to convert to build an electric car. They just wouldn't do it, so I decided I better do my own. So this is why I did it. So taking a look up front, let me show you what we have. Clearly, the first thing you see is all the batteries. There's actually 48 batteries total. There's a 30 up front and another 18 in the trunk, and so they're all strapped up in series. So the voltage adds up to 160 volts, which is substantial. It's good. It's certainly dangerous, but it drives the car just fine. So this is that's where it charge, and then this is actually the charger, the green thing in the back. So that sends all the current to the batteries to make sure that they get charged. The other two things that you see next to that are the DC to DC converters. They convert the high voltage DC down to 12 volts to run all the car systems, so the electric windows work and all that other stuff. Yeah. And then the rest of the batteries are under here, as you can see. So this is just a rubber bath mat, because one time I dropped a tool in there and it scared the hell out of me, so I put a rubber mat there to protect it. And that's pretty much it. I still have a trunk, so I can still carry things. I can still go to the grocery store, and it works out great.
The press releases and so forth and the news media will have you believe this is pretty much done. There are less than 20,000 vehicles of all types worldwide running on lithium batteries at the moment. What we present is basically that anyone with even modest mechanical skills can take an existing car. It works better with a small car, works better with a car with a manual transmission, but you can do any size car and any kind of transmission and convert it to electric yourself. You do not have to be a victim, and you don't have to wait on Chevrolet or Nissan or someone to do it for you. You can go take a car you've always loved, a 63 Carmen Ghia or a 71 BMW 3 Series or something, and make your own electric car. And from the moment you get done on, you're kind of charging with electricity and driving past that gas station, pretty much making a statement that you're done with all that. And that's kind of what fuels the passion that we see in these people. We do a weekly video at EVTV. It's a little unusual. It's www.evtv.me. instead of .com. We put up a video every week. We've got a blog. I try to give a little background on some of the videos, and kind of over time you can follow a build. We'll serially do 15, 20, 25 episodes on a single car, and you get to see the build basically from having a roller with no engine in it to having a fully functional electric car.
As an anthropology student, Jennifer Rickard is the 21st century explorer, soaring the skies for the ultimate photo opportunity and exploring the depths for sunken ships.
My name is Jennifer Rickard. I am an anthropology major with a mass communication minor, and I am a sophomore. A friend of mine back when I was bartending asked me what my interests were when I discussed with him about going back to school, and I had said travel and language and people, and he said that I should probably check out the cultural anthropology classes that they offer at SEMO, and I came in with that and realized that that's exactly what I wanted to do. This summer I went to an underwater archaeological field school in Menorca, Spain with the Echo Museum, and a friend of mine that I had become PADI certified with. Basically, it's an underwater archaeological excavation that students are allowed to pay tuition to and attend over a 2-week time period, and they get to obtain the tools as far as reconnaissance and survey mapping and basic underwater techniques for underwater archaeology, and be able to use that later on for any particular grad school applications that they would like to go on to. Going there, we had entered into the small city of Cittadella, and everything was so close together with the Spanish tiled roofs and lots of people everywhere, and it was pretty exciting initially. My favorite part about it, other than just the indigenous people there, we had gone cave diving, and Menorca, the island, actually has a lot of different caves, over like 180 of them. And one of the scuba instructors took us on a little excursion, and we went into one of their massive caves that they have that's underwater and completely submerged. And once you go into the cave, you get to rise up into a specific area where it opens up, and you can take your snorkel out, and you can take your regulator out of your mouth and kind of check out the entire cave and then continue on going through. We kind of had an idea that there was an area that we were going to do a linear survey with, and we had suspected that there would be a ship submerged in there. So about 8 minutes into the linear survey, after we dove in, we discovered an entire area of dead seaweed. We decided that we would stop and survey the area, and once we had dug in, it was about 2 feet in, and there was sediment flying everywhere. We had hit something hard, and the more we dug through, the clearer that the water got. After the sediment had settled, it was seen that there was a ship there, and one of the indicators that it was a ship was there was a nail sticking out of the side, and from that nail we were able to determine that it was probably a 16th to 18th century shipwreck, and that had most likely been burnt as its demise in the first place because of all the charring on the side. Once the shipwreck is found, then more and more teams will continue to uncover it, and that will actually determine whether or not we were correct in our first assumption, but also as it's more and more uncovered, there might be other parts that are also linked to it. So it should take a few more sessions, and once the sessions end in November, they'll have to restart again the next following season, which at that point in time might have been covered up again from like the swells and covering it over with more sediments. It would not be put into a museum, most likely, because that once you take an artifact from the seabed and bring it into surface, it goes under oxidation, and that is where it will start to deteriorate once it hits oxygen, because it has been submerged in an unoxygenated area. I had originally gone to our terrestrial archaeology excavation field school in 2010, where we visited the Cahokia Mounds, and there was a conference that was going on during this time, and there was a specific lecturer that had spoken about some Mississippian archaeology and had some photographs, aerial footages of a specific site. And after he was done lecturing, I went up to him and I approached him to ask how he obtained these pictures. And he went through the whole process of explaining to me he had to find a pilot, a photographer, to be able to get the image of the area that he exactly wanted. And so at that point, I had thought to myself, if you learn to fly yourself, well then it would just be that much easier. So my father, who had been a pilot for a number of years, also had got his fixed wing as well as rotorcraft certifications. And he had access to a couple of helicopters. As soon as I came back, I had asked him, you know, if I could find an instructor, would he allow me to use them in order to train for a pilot's license? And so that's how I originally became interested in it. I am afraid of flying, and yeah, I am afraid of diving, and when I first go in there, all the water kind of gets around you, and you get this sense of claustrophobia, or whenever you're 2,000 feet up in the air and you realize how small you really are and compared to everything else on Earth, and how far of a fall it would be if anything were to go wrong. Yes, it's very terrifying, but at the same time it also has this like sense of exhilaration that you get off of it as well, and you start to develop a healthy sense of safety for yourself. 2 weeks. The ultimate goal is to eventually do my own research, and within that it would be very handy to be able to just hop in my helicopter and go to some secluded spot that needed to be surveyed or do some reconnaissance work.
We traveled north to St. Genevieve, Missouri, to visit the Felix Valley Home. This state historic site hosts the annual Le Réveillon, or the Awakening. The home is prepared with a traditional French feast for visitors to view, and music fills the home with the unique and familiar sounds of the holidays. Jim Baker is our guide to the past.
The celebration in the home was probably a fairly lively activity. Celebrations for the French oftentimes involve music, storytelling, get-togethers for families. St. Genevieve is an amazing remnant of the French colonial history here in the state of Missouri, and actually in this whole region in the mid-Mississippi River Valley. The settlement started out in the late 1740s down right along the river. It was an agricultural settlement to start out. After a big flood in 1785, the village moved up to the present location. We have an amazing collection of historic buildings here in St. Genevieve, houses that date back into the 1700s, most notably the architectural style that the French used in the colonial period, which was houses that were built from logs. But instead of being set horizontally, the logs in the French houses were used vertically. And it's a style known as pateaux en terre or pateaux sur sol, which means post in the ground or post on a sill. And so today, this is one of the very few places in the United States that you can come and visit and see those historic buildings in their original setting in that very rare architectural style. St. Genevieve is a remarkable place, and it's a remarkable place for people to visit. And the community has been welcoming tourists, scholars, students for literally decades because of the important architectural history here in St. Genevieve. As part of that whole feeling that you get in St. Genevieve, just walking down the streets is a history lesson in itself because of the multitude of historic styles of buildings and things that are going on. The community really has gotten behind this historic preservation effort in St. Genevieve. People have done private restorations of their homes. There are restored bed and breakfasts, restaurants, historic house museums. There's a real effort to preserve the colonial history that's here in St. Genevieve because it's a very rare place, and you can only find this kind of architecture in just a few places in this continent. The state historic site here in St. Genevieve started way back in 1970, and originally it was the Felix Valley House composed the entire site, but we've expanded a great deal since that point. The Felix Valley House itself is an amazing example of kind of the American influence here in St. Genevieve. And this little community was under French control originally, then Spanish control in the latter part of the 1700s. Then it was part of the Louisiana Purchase after 1803. Americans started coming west into the territory and brought a whole new government, culture, language, and architectural styles followed as well. This particular house was built in 1818 by a man from Philadelphia,
His name was Jacob Phillipson. He was a merchant in the community, and so the house was built to have a residence and a store in the same structure. Phillipson sold the building then in 1824 to the Vallée family, one of the very important early French colonial families here in St. Genevieve, and a young couple, Felix Vallée and his wife Odile, came to live in the house. They occupied it for the next 70 years. They were one of the really influential families in the community, and the family history goes way back into the colonial period throughout the 1800s then. Felix and Odile were very much part of the community. Odile was a very generous benefactor of the Catholic Church and school here in St. Genevieve, and they continued on the tradition of having a business and a residence in the house. So today, as visitors come to see the home, they're going to see what it looked like in the 1830s when the Menard and Vallée store was in operation in part of the house, and Felix and Odile Vallée lived in the rest of the house as their home. Christmas would have been a very religious celebration for the French here in St. Genevieve, and if you had been here back in the early part of the 1800s at the time of Christmas, Christmas Eve would have been the big part of the celebration. The celebration was known as Le Réveillon, which in French means the awakening. It's really the awakening of the Christmas celebration. It's what we try and recreate here at the Felix Vallée house during our French Christmas open house. This was a magnificent celebration, and it was one that you would never forget if you experienced it at that time. Part of it was the anticipation of the event, the cooking and all the preparation for what was to happen after midnight mass, I'm sure was a thing that people looked for and anticipated really throughout the year. After church was over, they would come back to the home for a magnificent feast. And we try and recreate that feast as closely as we can in the dining room of the Felix Vallée house. Tradition called for 13 different desserts at the celebration, which would have been probably the highlight of things to come. But as far as food would have been concerned during the celebration, they put out all the stops. And so they probably would have had a roast turkey or roast goose as part of the celebration, different kinds of sausages, breads, cheeses, wines, maybe some specialty things that came up from New Orleans on some of the steamboats. The 13 desserts actually are very symbolic. There are 12 for the 12 apostles, and the 13th dessert was for Christ. So, as part of our celebration, we recreate 13 different historic desserts here at the Felix Vallée house. We have those out displayed on the table to give visitors a sense of what they might have experienced if they had been lucky enough to spend Christmas Eve with Felix and Odile Vallée. Our French Christmas open house this year is going to be held on Sunday from 1 to 7 p.m. It's a free event, and we encourage all of our friends to come and visit, experience this French Christmas celebration as you might have seen it in the early 1800s here in St. Genevieve. As part of our French Christmas celebration, a marvelous historic musical group known as the Peacocks performs in our parlor during the celebration of Le Réveillon. They play a lot of early French music, but a lot of traditional American music too for Christmas time celebrations. So visitors get a chance to hear some old-fashioned hammered dulcimers, and they enjoy just the whole ambiance of the celebration here in the house. It's a great way to kick off your own personal Christmas season and celebration, and you'll hear some old-time favorites and maybe some French music that you hadn't experienced before.
Each month we'll take this journey where there are many places to go, there are many interesting people to meet, and many new things to see. Join us again for River Tales.